Hello. Thanks for that great introduction, Steve. I want to thank the OSCC team of community volunteers who gave our panel the opportunity to discuss a controversial topic by accepting our proposal. I also want to acknowledge the work of organizations like Virtual Ability and educators who run avatar training sessions, share best practices, and provide resources for people with disabilities in virtual worlds. Finally, I want to thank everyone who has contributed to Open Simulator as an open source code project. This includes all of the forked versions. We all benefit from every effort as a virtual worlds community. You have all done a great job. Thank you. Today, I would like to share my perspective with you as a forgotten avatar. I hope it creates greater engagement and provokes thoughts on a topic that many of us are simply not aware still exists in virtual worlds. The next 20 minutes will be fast-paced and packed with information, so we have time for questions afterwards. Bear with me, I will tie it all together at the end. Here we go. Being an engineer and an advocate, I tend to see problems as opportunities for solutions. This topic is not just my problem or the problem of other forgotten avatars who are expected to adapt. It is a community problem that needs to be resolved by taking a new approach. Albert Einstein said doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. So let's stop the insanity. This panel discussion can be the beginning of great work we can do together as a community. Forgotten avatars in virtual worlds. Who are they? Why are they forgotten? How long have we known this is an issue? What is the root cause of the problem? How can we resolve these issues? Who are the stakeholders? What action can we take to eliminate the problem in the future? People with disabilities, permanent or temporary, have benefited greatly from the use of virtual worlds in many ways. From combating social isolation, to addressing motor skills issues that Tim described, to providing rehabilitation and treatment of health issues. Sometimes, virtual worlds can be used as positive technology, such as the recent research project I supported. It was called Wellbeing Technologies. Meditation using virtual worlds. The technical work for the user interface and master script involved consideration for my own disability and potentially any research participant by design. People with disabilities who design worlds and write scripts often try to accommodate other disabled user needs. Another example might be a virtual world designer who provides oral cues when approaching game elements for the visually impaired user. Or, to accommodate those with hearing impairments, designers might want to script console messages when in-world sounds trigger or provide some other visual cue. I admire Tim and other people with disabilities who find ways to accommodate their needs despite barriers created by software development approaches. The divergent needs of people with disabilities are so diverse that there is no way to discuss them all today. Overall, the positive impact of virtual world technology for people with disabilities has been remarkable and extraordinary. I don't want this discussion to take away from all the wonderful positive technology efforts of this community. But I do want to talk about the work that still needs to be done. All things considered. In essence, one could think of forgotten avatars as people with a wide range of disabilities. Software developers, businesses, and organizations with the best of intentions often think of users in terms of non-disabled and disabled. They take the traditional approach targeting non-disabled users first, then think adaptive or assistive technologies are viable solutions for inclusivity. In my experience as a person with a disability who is directly impacted by virtual world technology approaches, I think the development view of people with disabilities as peripheral is simply a flawed perspective, making it exclusive rather than inclusive. People with disabilities are fully aware our divergent needs can make software development and feature additions difficult. Some of us still feel forgotten and frustrated that we are expected to adapt rather than be allowed to help. Even when developers try to accommodate, some of us are even further marginalized within virtual worlds while others are helped. This is especially true when considering cross-disability communication between auditory communicators and visual communicators. This has been a source of controversy in virtual worlds since voice was added as a feature 9 years ago. The ability to communicate effectively in virtual worlds online is as essential to social interaction as it is offline. Clarity is even more important online because we don't have body language and sometimes don't have the benefit of clear voice inflection to assist us in our understanding. Ideally, it seems intuitive software should be developed that offers all users the opportunity to communicate in their chosen or native methods by voice, chat, or sign language. But even that can be a problem because of accents, local dialects, or even diversity of languages including signing. If we sign only, we exclude those who need to hear voice. If we use one language only, we exclude those who don't understand that language. If we use voice only, we exclude those who cannot use or hear voice. I very much agree with design thinker and disability activist Elise Roy, who said when we design for disability, we all benefit. We do often find solutions that are better than we had before. As a forgotten avatar marginalized in virtual worlds, I want to talk briefly about this with regards to virtual world viewing software, then discuss a potential approach to viable solutions. We can break types of disabilities impacted by virtual world viewing software into 5 categories: motor, cognitive, vision, hearing, and speech. For some people in all categories, difficulty using virtual worlds does not just cause frustration or a feeling of social isolation. It can cause physical symptoms that can take days to recover from and also lead to depressive episodes. This is not just a disability issue. It is a health issue. In my opinion, that makes it a humanitarian issue for the community. Many people with disabilities have disabilities that fit into more than one of these categories. Vision and hearing disabilities are the most common in people with other disabilities or with age. Early adopters of virtual worlds are among our older population. But we also have to consider veterans returning from the war theater and others who have benefited recently from the use of virtual worlds in education or therapy. When virtual worlds evolved to include voice communications, the number of potential hearing disabled users was twice that of those with vision impairments, and the gap is growing. One can only wonder why developers made the choices they've made, since that seems counterintuitive. Perhaps it was related to educators who found using voice in virtual worlds to be more effective for learning and had no correlation to people with disabilities. It was more likely related in a broader sense to user experience. Much was discussed about that choice with regards to the small text in the virtual world viewer user interface. But the resulting impact of that choice further marginalized users with hearing impairments, which became a source of controversy that remains today. It also impacted those with speech disabilities and motor disabilities on both sides of the controversy. I would like to share some experiences of my own in virtual worlds to help people better understand the impact. For those who don't know me, I am legally deaf since birth, even though I have some of my hearing. My impairment is neurosensory or frequency-oriented. This is the same as 90% of people who are hearing impaired, but each impairment is as unique as a fingerprint. About half of the medical community thinks deaf people should sign, while the other half believes that is an exclusive approach. The latter half provides assistance in lip reading, interpolation of sentence structure, and speech therapy to help us integrate into a hearing society as normies. I am in that latter half. The problem is not all lips can be read if people don't make them visible because they are looking down or away. If they have a lot of facial hair covering their lips. If they are speaking with their back turned. If they have had injuries, strokes, collagen injections, or lip surgeries. Or if they have speech disabilities or cleft lips. For virtual communication, the problem is compounded due to technology limitations for audio and video clarity with user or avatar lips that cannot be read. Even if we overcome those technology barriers, the need for captioning and subtitling remains because consonant sounds in human speech are associated with frequencies. If you cannot tell the difference between A, P, T, and C, B, D, and V, M and N, or even F and S, human speech can be unintelligible. Not being able to understand and communicate effectively leads to social isolation, frequent misunderstandings, false first impressions, and in some cases poverty. It is a quality of life issue as with any disability, but it is an invisible one because I don't look disabled. Much like my avatars. If you forget, don't be hard on yourself. My own family forgets sometimes. Early on in the evolution of the internet, I was into using bulletin board systems, forums, and chat rooms. Now I love using email and texting. For me, the playing field is level when it is in text. When I used active worlds, Move, Dare, Laxton, and even in early Second Life, I felt I finally found a place I could feel empowered to just be me without all the battles and uncertainties associated with my hearing. Then came voice without automatic transcription, and I experienced more digital marginalization than I felt before closed captions were required for television broadcasts. I later started using Open Simulator and did not have to deal with voice until it arrived there later. Per online posts and interviews by researchers, deaf users with low speech discrimination scores were negatively impacted socially and culturally. For example, a user with a speech discrimination score of 67% does not understand 33 of every 100 words transmitted by voice. Online voice quality issues are similar to noise booth testing conditions used in research. NIH research showed while hearing-impaired users scored slightly less in a quiet booth as expected, the discrimination loss greatly increased in a noisy booth. Scores were 88% and 98% in a quiet booth, with measures of 55% and 93% in noisy booths, respectively. I understand the flip side for those with vision impairments or motor impairments who are helped by having voice, and it is good to have for a positive user experience in their case. But my hope is that people will begin to understand the needs of people who have speech disabilities and hearing disabilities who are actually hurt by not being able to use voice, or by not having automatic transcription of voice they cannot hear. It negatively impacts us socially, educationally, and professionally. I remember losing a friend in virtual worlds who could not type well and had only one hand. He needed to use voice to communicate. But his voice was in a frequency range I could not understand, so no matter how hard I tried, no matter the headset rig I used, or no matter the alternative scripts available for the hearing impaired, we could not communicate effectively. Our friendship became too much of a source of frustration for him, and he ended our friendship. On the other hand, I am very grateful for friends in virtual worlds who have gone out of their way to make me feel welcome and provide transcripts on note cards of poetry readings, or of plays being performed virtually so I can follow along and be included in festivities. I truly appreciate the efforts of Cynthia, Barbara, Steve, and others who try to transcribe voice during meetings so I won't feel excluded, but they are not always available, and that is understandable. In my view, what we need for full disability equality and a positive user experience for everyone in virtual worlds does not yet exist. But it can, if we work together to make it happen rather than just talk about it. Now that everyone listening knows a little about me as a forgotten avatar, let's consider the potential impact now and in the future that digital marginalization and cross-disability communication issues may have on people with disabilities. 1 in 5 Americans has one or more disabilities. In the U.S., 1 in 6 baby boomers have hearing loss. 1 in 14 Americans of Generation X have hearing loss. 1 in 5 American teens have some type of hearing loss. 60% of returning U.S. veterans have hearing impairments. It is evident people with hearing loss is the fastest growing segment of people in the U.S. with disabilities. Let's look at the economic aspect. 1 in 7 Americans live in poverty, but that amount doubles to 28% for people with disabilities. Individuals with disabilities in third world countries are more likely to become disabled as a result of poor living conditions, health endangering employment, malnutrition, poor access to health care, and lack of accessible education. We know disability and the social stigma associated with it, marginalization, worsen poverty by increasing an individual's isolation from society and causing economic strain. Yet, the growth rate of people with disabilities is outpacing population growth worldwide. These alarming statistics clearly show we have major issues that we will face in the future with regards to the needs of people with disabilities. I believe the use of virtual worlds will continue to grow in education, training, and therapy. It will also likely expand into the workplace for teleworkers. This means these offline statistics have relevance because anyone is a potential user. People with disabilities make up the largest minority in America and are by far the most impoverished because they are marginalized, are more likely to have health issues, and are more likely to have family incomes diminished. With the prevalence of poverty among those with disabilities, it is clear we need to eliminate any barriers, virtual or otherwise, as soon as possible. Accessibility is a growing concern worldwide, and that includes addressing issues in open-source software design. Cost is certainly a consideration, and open-source collaboration of a new viewer application from scratch is a great idea, but it will be some time until that can be developed. Time and costs are also considerations when we consider new research associated with haptic feedback devices, brain-computer interfaces, human-computer interface technologies for signing, various input-output devices for divergent needs, and head-mounted displays with sound. In addition, while training of non-disabled first responder or military personnel using virtual worlds may not be seen as needing accessible software design, we have to consider the trainers may be people with disabilities like veterans or retirees. All of the upcoming research is exciting with great potential, but it will not address the needs of today's users with disabilities. So let's think about what we can do now to help as many people as we can while new technology is developed. For example, it's been more than 15 years since the evolution of virtual worlds, yet we still have not incorporated text-to-speech and speech-to-text in all virtual world viewing software. Both of these are very mature technology solutions for people with disabilities in addition to other uses. Why is that the case? Because the divergent needs of people with disabilities are not part of the planning and design of virtual world viewing software. This is the root cause we must address. Was the digital marginalization resulting in forgotten avatars intentional? No, I don't think so. I also don't think further marginalization of the hearing impaired by adding the voice feature without transcription was intentional either. In fact, it is likely developers simply did not know how to plan and design inclusive software. Very few do, because none of us really know what all of the divergent needs are for all people with disabilities. But we must acknowledge the accessibility problem exists, and find ways we can not only help resolve the issues today but also prevent a repeat of the issue in the future. So let's review the problem. Virtual world viewing software is not designed to be inclusive. The impact: digital marginalization on different levels, forgotten avatars. The stakeholders: the virtual world community, education, businesses, governments, and non-profit organizations. A short-term solution: integrate text-to-speech and speech-to-text into existing virtual world viewer software. People with disabilities impacted by communications issues would see immediate benefit from these two easily integrated solutions. A long-term solution: form active working groups that can develop accessibility standards or guidelines for software developers so they can take an inclusive approach rather than an exclusive one when writing applications. In a nutshell, Grace Hopper said it best when she said the most dangerous phrase is, "We've always done it this way." On this topic, now that we can see this way is flawed, it's time to stop doing it this way. We need to break down the barriers and implement accessible design, even in open source. For all of us with barriers holding us back in virtual worlds, we are the forgotten avatars who are already stakeholders. For all of you listening who want to help break down these barriers, please become a stakeholder and join us in this effort. I really want to hear more about the barriers others face, share ideas for solutions, and find ways we can not just break, but also knock the barriers down. As a community, we can find solutions together. Some of us are already building an exciting new organization dedicated to accessible software and standards to advance virtual worlds and virtual reality technologies. We think this effort would be a good fit for one of many community working group projects we envision. We can exchange contact information after our session ends. Before we continue, I want to acknowledge the following organizations that provide data on people with disabilities to be addressed with accessible software design. World Health Organization, U.S. Census Bureau, The Hearing Review, Frontiers Academic Publishing, Journal of Virtual World Research, Able Gamers Foundation, Disability Studies Quarterly, Centers for Disease Control, National Institutes of Health, Health and Human Services, Respectability Report, and the Anita Borg Institute. As an example of text-to-speech technology in a fairly natural voice, the voice in this presentation was provided by a free TTS reader available online. Thank you all for listening. Now it is my turn to listen to you. Back to you, Steve.